Summertime. After a long winter, we relish being outdoors, wearing light clothing, and taking in the warm weather. But what if summer never came? That's what happened in 1816. Some would call it the poverty year, the year without wine, or the year of the beggar. But we would come to know it as the year without a summer. Spring, 1816. A mysterious dry fog has blanketed the northern hemisphere, dimming the sun and causing a drastic environmental change that would impact people around the world. As Europe recuperated from the Napoleonic Wars, torrential rainfall caused major flooding, displacing thousands of people from their homes. Food was becoming scarce as grain warehouses were looted in Britain and France. When armed laborers marched with flags that said bread or blood, England suspended all taxes. The violence was so bad that some governments would declare it a national emergency. Winter seemed to have come early, or maybe it never left. May of 1816, Mary Godwin, philosopher Percy Shelley, romantic poet Lord Byron, author John William Polidori, and Mary's stepsister Claire Clairmont vacationed together at a villa in Switzerland. But due to the weather, they were forced to stay indoors. They passed the time enjoying each other's company by sitting around the fireplace, talking late into the night. Mary said that it proved to be a wet, ungenial summer, and incessant rain often confined us to the house for days. One evening, they started telling frightening stories. This inspired Lord Byron to hold a writing contest where everyone would write their own supernatural tale. Byron would write an ominous poem entitled The Darkness, describing the dreary weather and the internal feelings it evoked. John Polidori wrote the classic novel The Vampire. Shortly afterwards, in a dream, Mary Godwin conceived of a grotesque creature created from a strange scientific experiment. I saw the hideous phantasm of a man stretched out and then show signs of life and stir with an uneasy half-vital motion. With Percy Shelley's encouragement, she expanded this tale into her first novel, Frankenstein. While they were trapped inside writing novels, across the Atlantic, a real-life horror story was emerging as famine, epidemic, and social unrest spread across the continent. It all began with a frost, which would ice over the landscape every month of the year. In May, sleet fell in New England, killing off most of the seedlings that were planted. The snowdrifts in the north from the previous winter had remained 2 feet deep late into spring. But the strangest part of the infamous summer of 1816 was the cold snap in early June. In some areas, the temperatures dipped nearly 50 degrees in one day. Conditions turned colder, and the rain began to freeze. Edward Holyoke, an amateur meteorologist, kept detailed records throughout his life. And on June 7th, he recorded that the weather was exceedingly cold, ground frozen hard, and squalls of snow throughout the day. Icicles 12 inches long in the shade at noonday. Massachusetts physician William Bentley wrote on June 12th, "In few seasons we have heard more bitter complaints against cold weather than since June has come in." Then, on June 23rd, to Bentley's amazement, a high of 99 degrees was recorded in Waltham, nearly 60 degrees warmer than it was 2 weeks earlier. But by July 8th, there was a frost once again, leaving Bentley absolutely perplexed with no plausible scientific explanation. The rest of the month was just as unpredictable, with dry conditions leading to droughts. This, coupled with the frigid temperatures, began to affect New England harvests, and many farmers were in financial ruin. Thomas Jefferson recorded the severe weather in his diary, frustrated over the crop failures that sent him further into debt. During the first 3 weeks of August, conditions remained very dry until August 20th, when a cold front came storming in. Even the astute weather observer Holyoke was confused. On August 17th, he said that the crop outlook is better than he could have anticipated. But on August 21st, he wrote in a tenser hand, "The fields were as empty and as white as October." The replanted crops in New England were now wiped out. And because of the hay shortage, farmers couldn't feed their livestock, and they had to sell them. With crop failures and food shortages, many New Englanders left for the better growing climate of the Midwest. Scientists were baffled by the strange weather, but the truth wouldn't come to light until the 20th century. When scientists began to look back at the previous years leading up to 1816, many volcanoes around the world had erupted, including Indonesia's Mount Tambora, which exploded in April of 1815. The volcano's massive ash clouds had obscured the sun to such an extent that 1816 would become the second coldest year in over 4 centuries. While the year without a summer caused starvation, disease, dislocation, and panic, it also resulted in agricultural and technological advances. The lack of oats to feed horses inspired the German inventor Karl Drais to research new ways of horseless transportation, paving the way for the invention of the bicycle. German chemist Justus von Liebeg discovered that nitrogen was an essential plant nutrient and was dubbed the father of the fertilizer industry. So on the next nice day, go outside, enjoy yourself, have some fun, because you never know, this could be a year without a summer.